a lot of my career has actually been, especially early on in my video games career, I was working at larger companies, largely on the narrative side. And I care a lot about the storytelling in games. But also what I want to talk more about today is how you as a game developer and as potentially a studio owner, a founder, really need to hone your storytelling skills, because there are so many more important stories that I think often as indies we overlook. This headline came out just a few years ago, and I was like, I don't know, every bone in my body just goes, no, you're wrong. But the whole point of, I think that I loved the moment. Like, I've worked at big companies and the like, and at one point in my career, I became the head of creative at Telltale Games. Rest in peace, Telltale Games. Really, really great studio that, was kind of on like the early cusp, a lot of the tragedies in the games industry. But what I love maybe most about it was the first place I ever went where I never had to tell anyone why story was important to their game. And that to me is crazy, because we all understand why story is important to your game, right? Because it has so many different advantages. Certainly, all of these. Story is very ownable. You might have a core game mechanic that is pretty darn similar to a lot of other games that are out there, but if you wrap it up in a different emotional story, your game is set apart. It feels different, right? And it therefore differentiates your game. It can really help create buzz and conversation. Like, people don't go into work around the water cooler. Well, they don't do that anymore anyway, but they don't go in there and talk to their friends about a game mechanic, right? They talk about what happened. They talk about the things that they uncovered. They talk about that, NPC they found in the corner, and have you seen them yet? Or, oh, we were in a raid party and this thing happened. Those are all stories. It doesn't have to mean that it's like, oh, someone's sitting back and telling you a very linear story. There are so many stories that are inherent in the game, and when people talk about them, it becomes free publicity. It's also relatively inexpensive. Adding story, and particularly once you get your systems in place, adding more story into your game can oftentimes be a fairly cheap way to expand the things that you're doing. And it doesn't need as much testing as, say, a brand new mechanic or something else that you've done with your engine. And it just generally keeps people coming back for more. Oh, what don't I know about this world yet? What haven't I figured out? But I think the essential thing that is going to underline everything that we'll talk about today is the number one thing about story is that it provides the critical why of your game. Why do people care about it? Why are they going to keep moving forward? Now, that doesn't mean that it has to be this deep, multi-character, lots of dialogue experience. You can have a story in a very simplistic, straightforward game. I don't have this slide in here, but in talks that I've done before, one of the things that I say is like, hey, I worked at Telltale on The Walking Dead, right? And that is about like, how are you going to survive before like the undead come and get you? That is basically the same story as Pac-Man. Okay. Right? So, like, you don't need lots and lots of dialogue. You need to understand what the player cares about. And that should, in general, line up with what you're doing, like in the game, right? Like, you winning the game tends to be the resolution to the story. Okay. But, and this is sort of the undercurrent, not just of this Microtalk, but of this entire conference that we have here. I've been very grateful to be part of the organizing committee for this. There were a lot of people at Seattle Indies who did a ton of the heavy lifting, but I got to be part of what we were doing here, and what I was so excited about is I came from AAA, and 2 years ago kind of took the leap and went into indie game dev. But what I've noticed when talking to people is that indie developers tend to therefore focus so much on the actual making of the game. And that's great, that's what you know, and that is what people will play. But nowadays, you are so much more responsible, not just for making a game, but for running the business of the game, right? No one wants to just make a game and have no one play it. So how are you gonna get it out there? How are people gonna see it? How are you gonna monetize it? All those other things, they're now on you as an indie dev. And they're the things that, bluntly, most indie and small studio developers need some help with. And the same goes with your storytelling skills. If you can master the idea of like telling a story, not just in your game, but the story of your game and the story of your studio, those are going to be invaluable in your founder's journey. Again, what happens in your game is just one piece of it. But you really need to be able to talk about your game and your studio for the various audiences that you are now responsible to reach. You are not just responsible to reach the player. You're responsible to reach publishers, funders, press, potential like business partners, other outsourcing people, freelancers, employees, like you need to reach many more people the moment you decide that, well, the moment you decide you're not just making your game as your individual passion project and you want more than just your mom and your little sister to play it, right? At that moment, you are responsible for lots of aspects of the business and lots of stories. So I want to break this down just a little bit, and if there were any slide that I would say is the big takeaway from this one, it's probably this next one. It is that start with the why. Give your audience a reason to care. Why does that particular audience care about what you are doing? All right. First straightforward thing is the story in the game. That, again, is about why should the players care? Why do they want to keep going forward? You want to ask yourself things like, what is at stake? Okay, what happens if I do or I don't succeed? How does the game change? That in and of itself, whether they're dialogue or named characters or whatever, is your game story. And you should be very aware of what that core thing is. These questions will help you get there. Okay, that one I think most people tend to be on the same page on. The next one would be, though, the story of the game. Why should players or publishers or whatever actually give you money for it? And right now, I don't know, that's a pretty hard conversation to have. Like, our industry is in a real tight spot right now on a financial level, and that's in part why there are so many people turning to indie development. But when I was at Xbox or Bungie or Telltale, somebody else was handling the marketing side of it, right? There's no one to do that for me now. And I don't have money to hire a full-time marketing person or a marketing agency. So I need to be thinking about why anyone would want to buy it in the first place. So this is the thing that appears on your Steam page or in your deck to publishers. That story of the game is something you want to really be thinking about. So what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Like, where is the gap that you see in the marketplace? What makes it different from any other game out there? Crafting that story and being able to tell it is so critical. And then here is like the last piece, and this may seem like it's splitting hairs, but it's such an important thing for you as an indie studio owner or developer to know, is the story of the studio. Like, why would someone partner with you? And I think that this is really critical for you to all examine. Some people decide that they are going to be an indie to make a game. And that's perfectly great. You can make a game. You're gonna largely have conversations maybe with publishers or people that help you put it out on Steam. Other people decide that they're going to open a studio because they want to build a business. And that is essentially a very different thing, and you need to recognize that and understand your own motivation, what you want this thing to do. Because like the business itself is what will allow you to not just make one game, but make multiple games. It will allow you to have an earnings, hopefully, not just from putting out one thing, but down the road, you know, you, the other people you are working with, you now are responsible for their paycheck and their growth. So this one is a little different, and that's really about why are you the right team to be making this game and others like it? And what is it that will allow you to succeed as a company? Now, these are just questions, obviously, to get you started. Because if you're sitting there going, I don't know what that third story is, or I don't know what that second story is, take a picture of this slide, go home, brainstorm with you, your team, what have you. Because what you should be able to do is practice this, understand it. It should be able to roll off your tongue at any opportunity. This is an event where the opportunity to tell your story is going to come up a lot. But a couple other things to just keep in mind. This is a basic tenet of story, whether it really feels more like it's the narrative of the characters in the game or what have you. It is not about plot, it is about character. So it is not about what is happening. It is about how that impacts people. It is about emotion. So your story of your, like, why are you making this game is never going to be just, I don't like first-person shooters that are out there. I wanted some of them to have lemurs in it. Whatever. Okay, fine. That is a very mechanical answer. It doesn't give me a why. It doesn't give me a reason to care. So always lean into the emotion. Why does that audience that you are writing this story for, why are they going to resonate with this? Lean into the emotion, lean into the fact that they're real people that this story is written for. Okay, and one other thing I will say about this is, hey, be original. I worked on one of these games, and yes, and I know there are a lot of you in this room who are like, well, obviously there are 3 different games that are represented up there. Please. It's like one Space Marine looking slightly like another. No, the gun styling. Oh, their joints. Oh, the visor, it's totally different. You show this to anyone walking down the street, 99% of them will be like, oh, I get to pick different colors of my outfit in the same game, right? Like, stand out, right? Like, show that there is something in your game that is different from what else is out there. Because if you're telling the same story as everybody else, we make games that bring people together in a joyful play experience. Oh, no, I never would have thought of that. Like, the person sitting next to you is definitely not doing that. Think about, like, why you are special. Because what you are doing is inherently special. Because you are the one doing it, and that is different than the indie that is next to you. But you have to lean into that. And if you feel like what you're trying to do is copy somebody else's story, I would take a big step back, because games are too hard to make. They take too much time to make something that somebody else has already put out there. And right now, our market will not stomach the fact that you are now just one more clone of another thing that's out there. That is not your story. I don't think any of you want that to be your story. So think about, what is it that you bring that's special to the game space, and how do you put your character into your story? And with that, thank you very much.